Welcome to a presentation by Digite Swift-Kanban. This is an overview on Swift-Kanban. Let's start with what is Kanban. Kanban is derived from a combination of two Japanese words, kan, which means visual, and ban, which means card or board. So Kanban roughly translates to a signboard or a signal board that indicates that there is capacity for work, or that there is need for replenishment of inventory, or some such signal that indicates that action needs to be taken so that work can continue. It was coined by Taiichi Ohno in Toyota during the late 1940s and early 1950s, and it was there that it was used in its production systems. In today's world, Kanban for software or IT is defined as a visual method to manage and improve your existing software and IT processes. Kanban has 6 core properties. The first one says visualize your work. And this is a key aspect of Kanban, that you can visualize the entire value stream or the entire workflow through which your work passes as value gets added to it. The second part is to define WIP limits or work in progress limits. This is key to Kanban because this is really what helps you create flow. You define the amount of work that each function can do at any point in time. And this helps you reduce multitasking to focus on work that is at hand and to complete it with the right level of quality. A key aspect of this is to introduce pull, which allows team members the ability to say when are they ready to start work on a particular work item. So they are able to actually pull in work from the previous stage once they're ready to work on that next piece of work. The third is then to manage flow. So once you've defined your overall value stream, once you visualized it and you define the WIP limits, then you measure and monitor the flow and make changes as needed. The fourth is to make policies explicit. Kanban is all about making things very open and transparent so that everyone is aware of what the overall framework is for managing the Kanban board. The fifth is to implement feedback loops. Feedback loops are recommended at two levels: at the individual and team level through daily stand-up meetings, and at the organizational level through the operations review. The daily stand-up meetings provide teams and individuals a daily opportunity to review their processes, to review the board, to look at the flow, to look at their various performance indicators, and take corrective action as they go along. The organizational level operations review allows for the entire organization to look at the overall Kanban implementation and look at sort of systemic changes that need to be made in order for the entire organization to benefit from Kanban. So now let's take a look at Swift-Kanban. Swift-Kanban has implemented all of these principles and properties of Kanban, and it helps you accelerate your Kanban adoption. If you're a first-time user, you might come to a project creation screen that lets you start working on your first Kanban board. If you're already a user and have been using Swift-Kanban, then you will log in and come back to the last board that you're using. And this is a sort of friendly feature provided by Swift-Kanban so that you quickly get to the work that you want to get to rather than having to navigate through a bunch of links. As you can see here, this shows me the last Kanban board that I was working on, and as soon as I log in, it gives me several visual cues and an idea of the overall layout of the work. Let me quickly take you through some of these. So at the highest level, we have swim lanes, which define different categories of work, and in this case, you can see there are three parent level swim lanes that are there for tracking development, maintenance, and integration type of work. So this is a software software activity tracking board. Within each of the swim lanes, you can have a different value stream or workflow. In this case, for example, you can see that there is ready, develop, validate, and deploy. In the case of the maintenance swim lane, you can see a slightly different value stream. You have ready, and then you have impact analysis. And the impact analysis potentially is a step which allows the team to first do an impact analysis of new tickets that may have been logged in by customers. And once the impact has been determined and the scope has been determined, but perhaps a plan is communicated back to the customer, and then you continue to work on fixing that or taking care of that effect, and you may do development, validation, and then approval. And so each lane can have its own value stream or workflow that lets you define exactly what is the kind of work that needs to be done and how that work needs to be done to deliver the specific category of work. As you can see, Each of the value streams and each of the columns and the lanes also provide you further information. So first of all, besides the name, which can be customized based on your own value stream, you see the numbers that are next to them, and the numbers indicate the WIP limits for each of the columns that you see on this particular value stream. So in this case, for example, it tells me that I can have a maximum of 5 uh, cards in the ready lane or ready queue. At this point, I have only 2. In the case of develop, overall I can have 15 cards. At this point, I have only 7. And within each of those subcolumns in progress and done, I can also have uh, WIP limits that are specific to that column. Let's take a look at some of the other things that you see here. So first of all, as you can see, there are different colored cards. So there are yellow cards that are user stories. There are pink cards that are defects. There are some blue cards or light green cards that are impediments. And these are cards that have been set up for this particular Kanban board. You can define your own Kanban boards. Just to get an idea of what are these various cards and what do they mean, you can click on the legend screen here, and as you can see, this particular board has 4 types of cards: impediments, defects, issues, and user stories. You can have your own cards, your own card types, and your own attributes as well. If you wanted to define your own value stream or your own board layout, then you simply click on the modify process, which is available right here, and it takes you into an editor view. And now you can add your own lanes. You can copy an existing lane into a new lane. You can work with the columns. You can change column values and column names, and just do a variety of different things in order to define your own board. In addition, you can enable smart lane settings, which define lanes by either a card attribute. So you can potentially define smart lanes by priority or class of service or card type, or even by team member. So each team member can have their own smart lane. Or you can define smart lanes based on custom labels, as is the case in this particular Kanban board. You can also do other things as part of the board layout and board design. One is to select the different card types that you want to use as part of your board. The overall card types are defined at the organization level, but you can also create your own card types here, and those become available to the rest of the teams as well for use in their Kanban boards. Swift Kanban also has the concept of to-do lists or task lists, and you can associate a specific task list template with each card type. So for example, one of the default cards that is available in Swift Kanban is user stories, and you can define a task list for each user story. In this case, for example, I have a simple set of tasks, tasks 1, 2, and 3. You can define your own task list here at the organization level and then modify them at the project level. Or if there isn't any defined, then you can define them at the project level itself. The other thing you can do as part of the board design is to define other policies that need to govern the behavior of the board. So under other policies, you see a list of simple policies that are available that you provide today as part of the Swift Kanban standard set of features. And you can choose to use some of these as part of your board operational policies. So this helps you make these policies explicit and have discussion around this every time you're looking at process improvement opportunities. We already talked about the various card types that are there in the board. Let's look at some of the attributes of the cards that are available for you. So let me move into an expanded mode of the board. So first of all, when you mouse over, some additional icons appear on the top right here. The first one helps you block a card if you are stuck on this particular card. And as you can see here, in this case, there are 3 or 4 block cards available on the board. And as soon as I hover on that particular card, you can see the reason why this particular card is in blocked. So here you have an insufficient information reason waiting on some further input from the customer. The other icon that is there is for all the comments that are being made on the card as people work on the card. So all of the collaboration that happens on the card can be tracked right here. And this is the threaded discussion that Swift Kanban supports. Whoever is working on the card at any point in time, or whoever is reviewing the card, can come in and make a comment, and then you can go ahead and reply to that comment right here, and it tracks who made that response and against what particular comment was that response made. And as you can see here, this becomes a nested discussion. The third icon on the card is the list of tasks that are being done against this particular card. If you click on that, you see the actual list right here in this pop-up, and this list can be populated from a pre-existing pre-specified list of tasks that can be set up at the time of designing the board, or it can be set up during the project creation itself and for each card separately. So you can pretty much control exactly what kind of tasks need to be done against each card once the project is started off. And against this, then you can report its current status, such as whether it is pending, in progress, or completed. What specific queue are the tasks to be done at? Who's the person who's going to do the task? And then what are the overall hours, the estimates, actual and the remaining against the task? And this is something that would be useful if you're doing Scrum or Scrumban processes where you want to track burn down and remaining hours and so forth. Um, in addition to that, there are a variety of other actions available against the card, and these are all available through the drop-down menu that you see on the top right corner of the card. So things like archiving a card, making a copy of an existing card, converting a card from one to the other, and so forth. In addition to that, at the bottom of the card, you see a number of important data that you typically want to refer to, such as priority, due date, and estimate. And if you click on this little icon here, there's a nifty little scroll that we have set up so that you can see additional information about the card, such as class of service, size of the card, rank, and finally percentage completion to do estimate. So you can get a lot of information about the card, just by moving around the card here. Obviously, the picture or the avatar here refers to the person who's currently working on the card. If there's more than one person, as you can see here, then it'll show a little team icon here, and if you hover over that, you'll see the names of people who are actually working on the card at this point in time. If you click on the card title, you get a little pop. Actually do some immediate edits, some quick edits on the card, including a title, description, and a bunch of attributes that are important, including assignments at the card level. And also you can come in and add comments or make changes to your to-do list, the tasks, and even add attachments to the card right here. So besides entering information directly on the card, also attach files to the card and provide additional information to the people working on the card. In addition to all the visual information available on the cards, there are two other visual cues provided by the board that are useful for the team. The first one is that a block card shows up with a block label and a red outline against the card that tells you that the card is blocked. And if you mouse over the card, then you also see the reason why the card is blocked. The other important one is that the lane itself, lane header, becomes red, highlighted in red, if there is a WIP limit violation that happens in the lane. And as you can see here, there are 6 cards against the WIP limit of 5, and the lanes become highlighted. So you immediately get to know that there is potentially a problem, and that needs to be solved by the team swarming over it and helping smoothen the flow of the overall board. Let us take a look at the basic operations of the board and the features that support you while you're using the board either on your own or along with your team in a stand-up meeting. So let's say I'm a tester and I am going to pull a card that has been done by development, and I'm going to pull that into the in progress of the validate queue. So I can go ahead and click on the card and drag it in, and as per the board policy, I've got to say that I'm ready to start working on this, and that's what I'm going to say here. And the moment I do that, it is ready for me to work on. Um, so simple clicking on the card and dragging it is the basic way to do this. There is, if you have a large board and you want to move a card across a wider distance, then you could also use the move to feature that allows you to move a card across the board to different lanes, and within different lanes to different columns of that lane, as you can see here. So that's a simple operation. The next is adding a card to the board. You can add a card using the add card option that's available on the top left of the board, and this lets you add a card either directly to the board by creating a new card, or you can search and add a card from the backlog, which is probably the most common way that you would do it. Or sometimes you may also want to take up a card that was archived and you want to start work on it again, and you can do that as well. So if you enter a new card, it'll give you the form to set up the basic card details right here. If you want to search from the backlog and add it to the board, then it'll show you all the cards that are there in the backlog. And using these filters on the top, you can select the specific card type that you want to add. And similarly, you can do the same thing from the archive card as well. And when you add a card, it'll also ask you where you want to add the card in the board. And so, for example, if I were to add this user story right here, it'll tell me, it'll prompt me to say where I need to drop the card, whether it's in the ready queue, maintenance, or integration. So let me go ahead and add a card to the development queue here. And the moment I do that, you can see in the background that it is getting added here, and I'm done. So it's easy to add a card either from scratch or from one of the existing queues that the cards are already waiting in. Another powerful feature of the Swift Kanban software is the board filter. The board filter is a very useful, versatile, and flexible feature that allows you to use the board based on the context of your usage. You could use it individually, and if you want to figure out, for example, all the work that you're assigned to, you can simply filter the board by your own name. Or if you're in a stand-up meeting and you want to go around the room and ask each person what problem they're facing on the work that they're doing, then you can just filter one at a time by each of the resources or each of the people in the room and discuss the work that they're doing. If you want to focus purely on the exceptions, for example, daily stand-up meetings have a way of going on for a very long time. So instead of talking of the regular work, if you want to simply focus on the exceptions, the problems on the board, then you can look at the exceptions filter that lets you look at things that might be blocked, or things that need an assignment, or things that might be delayed, and so forth. If you're working in a Scrum environment and you want to focus on a specific release or an iteration, you can filter by release or iteration. So just a variety of different filters that are available that let you view the board and use the board in different contexts. Finally, let's take a look at the key metrics that Swift Kanban provides that you'd expect to see in a typical Kanban tool. The metrics are available under the metrics under the main menu under metrics. And currently what you see here is the CFD, or the cumulative flow diagram, being displayed. The CFD gives you a cumulative picture over a time range that you select of the overall work that got done and work that was there in different stages of the workflow at any point in time. So if you mouse over and focus on a particular time range, it will also give you the numbers on the left hand side of the cards that were there in different stages of the workflow. You can filter the CFD based on a variety of factors, date ranges, card types, and so forth, and the lanes, and look at it based on the part of the board or the part of the overall board's life cycle that you want to zoom in on. Similarly, we have lead time, which is perhaps the most important metric that gets discussed in Kanban circles. Here we are looking at a control chart version of the lead time chart that gives you what is the mean lead time, what is the upper control limit, and what is the lower control limit, and gives you a sense of what are the cards that we've completed within the acceptable time range, and what cards there might be that can be considered outliers and might need additional scrutiny. You also have similar charts for cycle time, work time, wait time, and block time. All of these are available through filters to show in different ways, control chart versus average versus distribution, and also filterable by a variety of different card attributes. Finally, we have the throughput chart that gives you a sense of how well the team performed for a certain grouping of the work items. So, for example, for a specific release or across different releases, what is the throughput of the team? It'll give you the total amount of work completed, and also show it by the different types of work that got completed in each of those releases. We hope you enjoyed this overview of Kanban and Swift Kanban. Thank you very much for taking the time to view this video. If you have any questions, do get in touch with us at sales@digitate.com or support@swiftkanban.com. If you need any more information, please do visit our website at www.swift-kanban.com. Thank you very much.